Not welcome to fight along with others, the 369th Regiment from New York had to prove themselves over and over again. During the war, no other unit would see so fierce fighting, and none would fight so fierce. If hell had a time and place, it would be the trenches of the Great War. And if hell had soldiers, the Harlem Hellfighters, a story of racism and war. The story where our regiment wasn't allowed to serve on the front line because of the soldiers' skin color. Originally formed to be the 15th New York National Guard Regiment, it became the longest-serving American regiment in World War I. The regiment was later changed to be the 369th Infantry Regiment, as white Americans refused to serve in the same regiment, and even along with black Americans. The Harlem Hellfighters also had one of the most famous regimental bands who played to boost morale in the front lines. They're credited for introducing jazz music to Europe in 1918. They traveled thousands of kilometers to play to French, English, Belgian troops, but they were never allowed to play for American soldiers because they were black. After the Great War, they weren't even allowed to take part in the Victory Parade. The 369th Regiment was first assigned to tasks such as resupplying ships, bringing supplies to front lines, but no fighting. They didn't like this treatment, but couldn't do much about it. Later, the American army gave the regiment's control to the French, because white American soldiers refused to serve along black soldiers and didn't even allow them to dig or clean their trenches, which was their main task for a while. They gave the French a letter called Secret Information Concerning Black American Troops, which can be described as extremely racist. It basically said that the French shouldn't do anything nice to the black soldiers, as then they may view themselves equals to white Americans when they come home from the war. They shouldn't even shake hands or thank them for their service due to this reason. Most French soldiers and commanders didn't have the same view towards the black soldiers, or at least nowhere near to the same level as most Americans had. When the regiment got transferred under French command and given French equipment, the French would let them fight, and they would fight hard. They served at the front lines for over 6 straight months, with no break in between the 191 days they were serving. At one point, the pay was stopped for the whole regiment by the US government, and even this didn't stop the Harlem Hellfighters from fighting for the French. They would fight for the first time in April 1918, and within a few weeks there were rumors among the German lines of soldiers who smile while they kill and will not be taken alive. They were given the nickname Hollenkämpfer or Hellfighters in English for being such fierce fighters. They were the longest serving US regiment of the whole war. They had 1,300 casualties in 191 days, but never had a single person taken prisoner and never lost any amount of ground. Henry Johnson was serving sentry duty with Needham Roberts. Johnson said that he doesn't like the idea of sending untrained soldiers to sentry duty, but a job's a job and an order's an order, and they continued on. On May 14th, 1918, they were suddenly being fired at by German snipers in their dugouts beyond the front line. They had a box full of grenades ready to go just in case the Germans would attack their position. At 2 a.m., Johnson thought he heard some wire cutting at a fence nearby. He told Roberts to go back and alert the French now. Johnson threw grenades at the incoming Germans and got answered with more grenades and gunfire. Roberts turned to help Johnson, but just then he was hit with grenade shrapnel. Johnson got Roberts back to their dugouts, but then he realized they were outnumbered with dozens of Germans coming in from all directions. After he had thrown all the grenades they had left at the Germans to stop them, and taking a few hits while at it, he began shooting with his rifle into the darkness around him where he suspected a German could be. At one point his rifle jammed, now the Germans were on top of him, and Johnson began to hit them with the stock of his rifle until the stock splintered. He was hit in the back of his head and fell to the ground. The Germans tried to pick up Roberts, but Johnson stood up again and started to stab them with his knife, which he took out of his pocket. He stabbed one, wounded another, took a pistol shot to his hand. Then he stabbed another German with his knife, who climbed onto his back. The Germans were retreating from the area as there were French soldiers coming to help Johnson and Roberts. After 21 wounds, having killed 2 Germans and wounding over 24 of them, he finally returned to the front lines. There wasn't anything so fun about it. Just for my life, a rabbit would have done that. When the French learned what Henry Johnson had done, they rewarded him with the highest French military decoration, the Croix de Guerre. Henry Johnson is the first American soldier to receive the Croix de Guerre, and in total there were 170 soldiers in his regiment who got the Croix de Guerre. He received his first medal from his home country, the United States, on November 9th, 2015.